one of my amazing friends, Alicia Hanf, who's here today. So I will pass it over to Stephen Holland, who's going to get us started on today's event. So thank you for having me. I'm Flossie Hall. I'm the COO and co-founder of AMC, which is the Association of Military Spouse Entrepreneurs, for anybody that wants to follow me and my work and all things that I do. So thanks for having me today.
Thanks, Flossie. One thing, I know there's something that's going on in a week or 2 weeks in San Diego. Do you want to just announce that?
Yeah, next weekend on May 8th, in partnership with Westfield Malls, we are hosting a military spouse-owned business showcase. So it's the first of a series of events to support military spouse-owned businesses. So if you're in the San Diego area and you want to come out and support military spouse-owned businesses, we have a whole bunch of military spouses that are going to set up their businesses. So come out, shop military spouse-owned. If you are a military spouse-owned business, let us know, and we will offer you a free booth or a free table, and we will be hopefully doing these all over the country in partnership with Westfield Malls. So a huge event for us. And we'll have some other great vendors out there like the USO, Cohen Veterans Network, San Diego Military Family Collaborative, the Padres, USAA, all kinds of great people. So come out, say hi. We have free giveaways, swag, all kinds of great things. So a big event for us. So I'll be in San Diego next weekend, and that'll be all day on May 8th.
And more importantly, Flossie, I will finally be able to give back you guys' camping gear.
That's been in your car for 2 years.
Side note. Don't let Curling borrow anything. Stephen, you got it.
Awesome. Thank you, Flossie. It's great to see you again, and great to hear about all the fun things you're doing. So for everyone tuning in, thanks for tuning in. If you were able to jump on live or watching this recorded on YouTube, thanks for coming. We have an awesome speaker today for the next kind of episode in our Tech School webinar series. For those of you watching on YouTube, feel free to give us a like, leave a comment down below, ask a question, share your thoughts. We want videos like these to be awesome resources, not only for those who are able to tune in live and be on the Zoom call today, but also those who are able to, watch these recorded and have these be awesome resources well into the future as well. So just wanted to mention that, but I will hand it on over to Alicia.
Hi, everybody. Is this where I share my screen?
Yeah. You can totally share your screen now.
Okay. Bear with me. Let's see if we can get this going.
I got faith in you, Alicia. You got
Wow. Do we get it on time?
Yes. That's perfect.
So excited. Okay. Well, first, I just want to start by saying thank you so much for having me here. Like Flossie, I'm also a lifelong Fokcus fan, Fokcus fam. Fokcus has been such a huge part of my development as a woman, as a leader, as a mother, and as a human. And so it's so great just to be here and share this space with you all. And it's always a great day when I can see Flossie. So thank you so much for bringing us together. My name is Alicia Hanf, and I'm going to go into a bit of my background through this presentation, but I just want to start off by really diving into a little bit of my personal mantra, which is to change the world a little to a lot each day. And I wholeheartedly believe that all of us have the ability to change the world, even just a little bit, by being kind or looking out for one another. So I love the opportunity to be here and hopefully add some change and sparkle in your world. And hopefully you leave today inspired to do that for others. All right. So one of the first big lessons that I want to share, and Flossie probably knows this from my journey, is always be your true authentic self. And this is something that I got from Brene Brown, but was really a practice that as a woman, as a veteran, as a mother, that was really hard for me to step into my own authenticity. So I'm a single mother, a military veteran, a minority, a woman in tech. I started a tech company as a non-technical solo founder. And if you would have asked me to read these things 2 years ago, I would have literally fainted. I would have been so crippled by all of the things that I thought I had to be and all the things I didn't believe I could be, that I wouldn't have been able to get this sentence out. When I first started my entrepreneurial journey, I did not identify with being a veteran, with being a mother. I thought that a veteran wasn't part of my story. I was afraid that if people knew that I was a mother, they would think that I wasn't capable of running a business. I thought that because I wasn't a white man, that I couldn't raise capital. And I thought that if I admitted to not being a technical tech founder, that nobody in the tech space would take me seriously. I was really finding myself buried alive by all these things I thought I had to be. And it took a lot for me to show up and be confidently me. And one day I was at an event. I actually had one of these moments at an event with Flossie speaking on a panel also, where I was just going back and forth between like, should I wear the startup shirt and jeans, or should I wear a dress? Like, kind of just really fumbling over my own identity. And the woman reached out to me and she said, I just need you to show up and do whatever you need to do to be your true, authentic self. And that's really stuck with me from there on. So even if you only took one thing away today, just have that confidence in yourself and that vulnerability and that courage to show up as authentically you. And where I really saw this ring true, I was speaking on a panel and a man stood up in the audience for the Q&A and he said, I'm Black, I'm gay, and I'm a veteran. When I walk into the office, when I walk into any meeting or any scenario, I automatically have 3 strikes against me. What do I do? And without really thinking about it, I looked at him and I said, we have to rewrite the narrative. That's the only thing that we can do. And so Curling and the team at Fokcus have been so instrumental in helping communities like us. Like I look and see the people on the screen. He's helped people like us rewrite that narrative for ourselves of standing up confidently as women, as military spouses, as military veterans, as humans, and saying, here we are as me, and see me and invest in me because I deserve to be here. So it was at the point of talking to this man or hearing him say his story about the 3 strikes against him that I realized that, like you and like me and like him, we all have a unique story. We all have diverse backgrounds, and that those are not our weaknesses, but those are our superpowers. So just know that your story is your superpower. So really briefly about my founder story. I started my career in tech probably before I even knew it with my Army career. So I served 6 years in the US Army, where I really learned the importance of mission, of vision, of supporting team. But really one of the biggest lessons was when communication fails, the mission fails. And when I went into a startup working in the education and the ed tech space, one of the things that I realized was that how important it was for students and professors to communicate with one another. And also as a business consultant, I realized how many organizations just struggle with simply communicating with one another, whether that's leadership teams communicating with their staff, whether that's with companies communicating effectively with their customers. Communication is really a problem, and it's really the downfall of a lot of people. So I started early in the tech space, working for an ed tech company, and helped them grow and scale from being at one university in one state to 13 universities across a few states, got them through their Series A funding, their Series B, and spent a lot of time building relationships, actually boots on the ground with professors, and really hearing what the problems were. And when I took these problems to the founders, and this was an automation, they wanted to automate the classroom, I said, guys, the problem isn't automation, it's engagement. And they refused to listen to me. They're like, what do you know? You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, I'm here every day with customers. This is the problem. So they weren't willing to solve it. So I said, I'm going to do it myself. And one of the things I said to them before they left was, how can you truly scale your company if you're not willing to listen to your customers? So since they weren't willing to listen, I saw the problem and became insanely passionate about solving it. So for those of you who are listening, for those of you in the room who are solving a problem, who see a problem out there that you want to solve with your company, just see that problem and become insanely passionate about solving it. And then become insanely passionate about really solving that problem for the end user, whatever your end user may be. So coming out of working for someone else's company and into my company, one of the things I always say is when you're starting a company, all of your trauma and all of your drama comes to the surface. So are you ready? And this was something that I wasn't quite ready for, was all of the emotions that would come up as being a tech founder, as being a single mother, as like just being somebody who is navigating life. And so this is something that I really just wanted to hit home of, and I believe Curling does a great job of talking about this, but when you are starting a business, when you are starting a venture, it is so super important that you really take time to check in with yourself and know who you are and where you are, but also that you check in with others that are going to be there supporting you and let them know the mission that you're setting out on. And because it is going to get tough, it's going to feel unnecessarily lonely. And you're going to have these moments where you say, how the hell did I get here? What is happening? And so my company that I started was a company called Saylo, which stands for Say Hello. It's an ed tech company that helps students and professors better communicate with one another. And with this, when I talk about knowing who you are as a founder, I realized that I was making so many mistakes. And there's this saying that goes, you don't know what you don't know. There was a whole lot of things that I didn't know, and I wasn't able to solve for myself fast enough. So one of the notes that I want to make here is just one failure your own. So when I was in the trenches of the startup, it was hard for me to see this. And now that I'm out on the other side, I'm able to see that how a lot of the failures that the company faced were coming from me. And so here's kind of my cautionary tale and my lessons learned for you. So one of the first mistakes that I made was I didn't hire the right people fast enough. I'm the type of person who I want to do everything myself. I was very controlling. And while this is great, you have to have the right team of people around you, just like Curling has with Fokcus, who are really going to help you in all the areas that are your own weaknesses. And I didn't know my weaknesses when I was first starting. From there, I didn't ask for help fast enough because I wanted to be all things to all people. I really felt the need to get everything done. So always ask for help. And then delegate and elevate. So there's a book called Traction by Gino Wickman, and he talks about delegating and elevating. And I didn't do a good job of finding the tasks that we needed for the company and delegating those where they needed to. And so the road to entrepreneurship can be quite lonely and quite challenging, but it doesn't have to be. And oftentimes we make that harder on ourselves by just simply not surrounding ourselves with good people and asking for help. So aside from being authentic, if you can to have another takeaway from today, make sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right people and that you're asking for help. And if you don't know how to surround yourself with the right people, ask for help surrounding yourself with the right people. And there are amazing people on this call who can help you do that. And so as we're navigating the space of being a woman, being an entrepreneur, diving into tech, I started to look for who has done this already and where is that example of, because she can do it, I can too. And I really started to find that things were harder for me than they needed to be. So I was asking myself, what are the resources that I'm lacking? What are the resources that the ecosystem are lacking the most? And how can I just build those? And I was like, if I can't find this example of the person out there paving the way, I'm going to be that person paving the way. And it's so interesting, Flossie, that you're on the call because you're one of the first women that I really connected with as an entrepreneur, where I saw you do it and you came into the room, and everybody always talks about their success stories as if the failures never happened. And you came into the room and was like, I made every single mistake twice, and here's how not to do it this way. And for you to show up so vulnerably and have so much courage to come into a room and say, like, these are all the ways I made mistakes, I was like, okay, I'm not alone. And it was one of those moments where the first time I felt like I had an ally in the space. And I was like, because she's doing it, I can too. And really just felt the need to be successful because I felt like we were linked arms, really just like rocking it out for the rest of the women out there. So with this of she can do it, I can too, I became insanely passionate about building an ecosystem. So after Saylo and during Saylo, I realized that in order for me to rewrite the narrative that I talked about earlier, that I was going to have to do a lot of work from the grassroots and ecosystem building. So at the time, I was part of an accelerator called Bunker Labs, which helps military veterans who are entrepreneurs launch, scale, and grow their businesses. And I put myself in a position to relaunch the accelerator to build the community, and ended up scaling that accelerator to up to 30 cities. And of that, I found that the resources that I was lacking the most and that most entrepreneurs lack the most are access to capital, resources, mentorship, and education. And if you're starting a business, you likely feel some of these pains, although you're here with curling, so you're good, because he is great on making sure you have access to the resources, mentorship, and education. But I said, how can I build that? And how can I be that example like Flossie was to me of the she can do it, so I can too. And so I made a transition from working with my tech company to working with building this ecosystem for entrepreneurs. And the interesting thing about Saylo was that, and even with entrepreneurship, is oftentimes the best founders are the ones who are solving problems for themselves that are aching them the most. And the thing that I was really lacking and hurting from the most was this lack of belonging. And that was a lot of what I saw in the education space with students and professors, was this lack of belonging and lack of community and lack of ecosystem. And so I took a step back from my tech company and built what I needed for me, but it ended up helping thousands of entrepreneurs across the country. So I want to transition into, and feel free to interrupt anyone at any time, but into my key lessons learned. Curling, one of the prompts you gave was, what would my advice be to the little Alicias of the world? Or
yes, definitely.
What advice would I go back and give myself? So I broke that down into a few slides that really just talk about my lessons learned. So one of the biggest ones for me was find your North Star and follow it. And this is like a very Peter Pan moment, but Simon Sinek calls it starting with your why. And of all of the businesses that I consult with and startups that I advise, I noticed that a lot of founders have a hard time anchoring to that North Star, whether it's, for some people it's revenue, for some people it's helping others, for some people it's values, but that mission, vision, values component is often missing from a lot of companies, and they find themselves getting off track because of it. So a really great book is by Simon Sinek, and he also has a TED Talk called Start With Why. But one of the things he says is people buy why you do something, why you do it, not what you do. And it's just a really good lesson in even communicating through your pitch deck, communicating to potential investors or customers, having that why as a North Star for why you do things. And one of the mentors and investors that I've come to be friends with in the LA ecosystem, one of the sets of questions that he asks for anybody before investing in them is why you, why us as investors, and why now? And I think that's such an important set of questions to ask yourselves of, why are you the right person for this opportunity, to lead this company, to serve your customers? Why are the other people on the side of it the best ones for you? And then why is now the right time? The second one is learn how to kill the imposter. So I think all of us at some point in life have dealt with and struggled with imposter syndrome. This was something that was really hard for me many times, whether it was having the confidence in myself to get up and give a talk, walking into investor meetings, even believing that I was worthy enough of the success of the company. And so one of the pieces of advice I give is create a short list of 5 people who matter the most, and 5 very minimum of like, who are the people that matter your most. Get the buy-in from them, sell them your dream, and let them know that at some point you might have to hit the panic button where you need to call them and say, please talk me off of this ledge. Every day feels like failure, or I don't know if I have what it takes, or like, am I the right person to be running this business? Am I worthy of this funding or this success? But really find those people who you can tap in. Think of yourself in a wrestling ring like WWE, and you're tapping them in to go in there and kill that imposter in the ring with you. And then the third one is gratitude will change your life. So I was at a conference or at a round table a few years ago. And at this table, I was the only woman, I was the only minority. And these men were all, several millions to up to billionaires at the table. And the exercise was to go around the room and everyone had to say what their biggest success story was from last year. And based off of the success story that you shared, people were going to pair up with you to see if they wanted to connect with you any further. And so in this moment, as people are going around sharing these major, major accomplishments, I felt like I was shrinking into a tiny little person in the room. And I remembered Brene Brown. She has this quote that goes something like, don't puff yourself up, up. Don't make yourself small. Just show up and stand your sacred ground. So I said, okay, here goes. My biggest success from this past year was implementing a gratitude practice. And I went to describe this gratitude practice, which for me is every morning I start my day with 5 breaths of gratitude, where I share 5 things that I'm grateful for before I get out of bed, before I do anything else. And what this did for me was actually rewire my brain, the way I solve problems, the way I approach opportunities. The abundance that has come into my life has 10x just from implementing this practice. And so after I said the story, I literally felt like I wanted to just disappear off of the planet, because I said, I cannot believe these people are over here talking about curing cancer and launching rockets, and I'm talking about gratitude. And overwhelmingly, after everyone shared their story, there were a line of people, of these millionaires and billionaires, to come talk to me about gratitude. So that's one lesson in authenticity and gratitude. But just no matter what you're doing, don't ever feel like you're not enough. Just show up and stand your sacred ground. The next one is to be gentle as you rise and as you fall. So we're so hard on ourselves, especially as women, especially as founders of businesses, because we feel like everything rides on our shoulders, because oftentimes it does. So also, as we're moving through running a business, we often don't take time to stop and smell the roses. And we certainly don't take time to stop and give ourselves the roses. So the first lesson here is just be gentle as you rise. And then the second one is, I feel like we don't get told enough that it's okay to fail. So it's okay to fail when you do fail, because you will. Be gentle, be kind with yourself. And I feel like this is a Flossie Hall quote, but no matter what, keep going, fall down 7 and get up 8. And the next one is find your tribe. So this goes back to one of my failures, which was not finding the right team fast enough. There's the saying, if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So make sure that you find your tribe, like the room that you're in right now, of people who have your best interest at heart, who are going to help you get to the next level. And certainly just don't ever feel like you should do life, entrepreneurship, or anything else alone. And the final one is last known point. So last known point is part of a TEDx talk that I did which talks about the veteran's edge, which leans into how veterans are superheroes that the world needs today. And last known point is a land navigation principle from the military, where they set us off into the woods with nothing but a compass, a map, a pencil to plot our points on this map. And we're supposed to go out and find all these things and then come back home without getting completely lost forever. And when I had to do land navigation course in the military, I had come from LA. Like, I don't go into the woods. I still don't go into the woods. It's not my thing. Like, we don't do that. So the instructor saw this look on my face and realized that I was not going to make it. And he asked me before I went out, he said, do you know what it means to find your last known point? And I said, absolutely, have no idea what you're talking about. He said, when you get lost, and you will, don't panic, don't freak out, don't run around, just take a deep breath and go back to the last place you remember being, find yourself on the map and replot your course and try again. And I say this because it's such a good metaphor for business and for life. When I launched my tech company, Saylo, I was facing one of the largest tragedies of my life, losing my mother very tragically, having to take care of 2 daughters by myself, launching a tech company in an unknown space, and everything felt like failure and was scary. And I felt like I was constantly asking, how did I get here? And it was that principle of last known point that really helped me get back on track. And so last known point, usually in life, whenever you're feeling yourself lost, is always a values conversation. So one of the pieces of advice that I give is, life is a series of micro adjustments. When you find yourself feeling off track, it's usually never something so big, such a big swing where you're having a big pivot or running super fast in the other direction or taking on more things. Be okay with taking a breath, taking a step back, and finding your North Star, whatever that is, and tapping into your why and your values conversation. And usually when you're feeling lost, it's usually because there's a misalignment with your values, but it's so easy to just make small adjustments to get back on track. And so something I like to add is that you're not lost, you're just off track, and it's okay. So for all of you that are listening to all of these things that I just said, I just want to really reiterate that you've got this, whatever it is that you're working on. Constantly find ways every day to reaffirm yourself that you've got this, and no matter what you're doing, to keep going. And that is that.
Thank you, Alicia. I definitely love the orange. Yeah, I see the Bunker Lab shirt. I should have wore my Bunker Lab shirt because it has so many good memories. But
orange is my favorite color.
I didn't know. I know that. I'm gonna have. We usually open up like so if people want to ask some questions, maybe just put on the chat or some of the cohort if you guys want to unmute yourself offhand. But Alicia, thank you so much. That gratitude piece really got me. I actually was like I got a little emotional because I think that's actually a really powerful piece on that. Let me ask you just one question offhand, and it goes to your last. It goes to that gratitude piece.
Yeah.
One, I know I just want to I want to thank like everyone's on, like we have Matt on, you're on, Vivian. I would just want to thank you all for your service. So I think I should have even said that before, but that was one reason why we always want to help you. It's just because you did so much in your service. And you being a veteran, I always say like veterans have this like superpower. I always tell people that because we did so many city highlights with Bunker Labs and you, and I learned so much. But when I say that veterans have this kind of superpower, like, does that resonate with you? Like, what do you think offhand, being a veteran? What did some of those advantages of going through that help you being like a founder? That's like my kind of question offhand.
Yeah. So I definitely think veterans are superheroes. For one, I don't know of any other organizations in the world that invest millions of dollars in training leaders. So for one, we're leaders. We're wired to serve. We often join the military because there's this sense of duty and this honor and beautiful value sets that we bring into the military, but also that are ingrained in us every single day that we take out. And so veterans walk into an organization, whether it's their own, whether it's someone else's, and we're natural leaders. We understand how to navigate politics of a scenario. We understand how important it is to build communities and to build trust instantly, because if you don't have trust in the military, that's one of those things that can get you killed. So building trust very instantly. And then just like I said, some of the principles of when communication fails, the mission fails, of just knowing the importance of communicating at every level. But also very simply, we have to go through a lot of really crappy days in the military. And so that builds for some serious resilience as a founder. Because you're going to go through some really crappy days sometimes as an entrepreneur. And so just having that resilience of like, okay, I know what a bad day is, I can get through anything, is really great.
I love that. I love that. You know, I got some questions from Joanna, and I'll field some of those. And if other people offhand have one, but this is one thing that we do see a lot, Alicia, and you put that on your piece. But I think she was just saying, what was one of your worst hiring mistakes you made in that process? And we can go back to Saylo or another group too.
Worst hiring mistakes was I let somebody guilt me into hiring somebody. And then I also didn't realize the power of equity. I thought, okay, well, we haven't raised any money, so it doesn't matter if we all have so much of the cap table. But what I didn't realize was that I was giving people via equity a larger say-so in the decision-making of the company than was appropriate for them to have. So 2 parts there of one, just letting somebody else influence a hire based off of what was the best decision for the business. And then not being thoughtful in giving out equity.
Oh, I love that. That actually, that's a solid one. I'll do one more from John, and Stephen, you can unmute yourself. How about you unmute yourself, Stephen, on yours, and then I'll do another one from Joanna afterwards.
Sure. Yeah. So So Alicia, you know that, with Fokcus, we deal with a lot of founders, we deal with, even students that are trying to start their career. And so I really loved, that first piece of advice you gave on the North Star, finding your why and all those actionable steps somebody could take. Now, my question was, has your North Star or your why changed at all or kind of evolved throughout your career? Why or why not?
This is the greatest question ever. My why has changed many times throughout my career. And I think I recently wrote a manifesto because I've changed everything that I'm working on. So when I was VP of sales at a solar company, my why was to make as much money as possible because I was in a situation in my life where I really needed to make a change financially. And that's not always the best thing. When I was with Saylo, I really saw so many people suffering because they felt disconnected and lonely and isolated on the college campus. And my why was to make the world a less lonely place. Now in my current mission, so I'm working alongside high net worth individuals, athletes such as Baron Davis, advising on their fund. But my why really is to shine a light on those who are often the most overlooked, which is the women, the Black and brown, military veterans, entrepreneurs, LGBTQ community. So who are often most overlooked by society, and how can we shine a light on them? And also, I just really believe that it is my purpose in life to empower people to heal from their trauma and for everyone to know that you're worthy of stepping into your higher purpose. So yes.
That was great. I think that was a great answer too, but good question, Stephen. We have one from Brianna. Brianna, you want to unmute yourself on this one? This is actually a really good one because I remember, Alicia, you were part of Brianna's city highlights, right? So she had this question to offhand.
Yeah, hi Alicia. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. That was amazing. I hope you can hear me because my
Yes,
mic going
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my question is, in a previous discussion, I think it was for our last city highlights, you mentioned TAM. So my question to you is, how do you define your TAM for your company? And what was your journey in finding that definition?
Oh gosh, why did you flip this back on me? So for my total addressable market for Saylo, interesting thing about this and why I think I asked you this question, when I started Saylo as an entrepreneur, I really didn't know anything about building a pitch deck. Curling helped me tremendously with telling, and Flossie with my story. I just kind of knew that this problem needed to be solved, and I was really passionate about it. And so one of my advisors was like, "You're missing the TAM, SAM, SOM slide in your deck." And I was like, "What the heck are you talking about?" And he was like, "How do you not know this?" And broke it down on a whiteboard for me and was like, "Okay, this is your total addressable market. Essentially, this is like the different areas you're going after." And I just Googled like crazy. And then I started Googling my competitors and what their TAMs were and looking for their decks. So I feel like being a founder of a company makes you a really good researcher, but it was really just Google. And then, as I'm actually in the process of launching a new venture now, this is something that we're looking at, and it's more in the consulting to government space. So like, what is the TAM of the government space? Great question. I will make sure I get back to you with this answer.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
I have another
friend.
You have a question, Tripty? You had some good comments. Is Tripty still on?
No, nothing specific. I actually, Alicia, your authenticity is so palpable, and it's so wonderful to just really go through your journey and talk about the specific areas where you're like, this is what I need. I think specifically for me, the most powerful was the last known point, because I think we all sort of struggle with, where did things go wrong and how could I have just intercepted? So just super grateful on that. And I guess, yeah, so I loved your feedback during the city highlights. I felt like it was very, very targeted and specific. Something that I've been researching lately, and this is maybe it's a little bit more theoretical, but something I've been researching lately is that women, when they're pitching, get asked more prevention questions of, how are you going to avoid this risk? or, what if Amazon does this, or, whatever. Whereas men get asked more promotion questions of, hey, let's talk about your 5-year plan, or, oh, there's so many other things that you can do with this. And those conversations have a direct implication on both deciding factors for distributing equity and also the amount of equity distributed. Can you tell me specifically, when you were going through your round, if you felt any of that, and if so, how you were able to combat it?
For one, I love this question and this conversation, and I would just love for us to do anything with what you just talked about. This needs to be a bigger discussion, and more women need to hear it, because this is absolutely right. And this even goes back to rewriting some of those narratives. If you look at, and this, I'm going to get the statistic wrong, but there's a percentage, and I don't think it's 80% or what it is, of how women are more likely to ask for a promotion if they see a woman in a leadership position versus how they're not. And so why more men get promoted is just simply because we're more likely to ask for a promotion from somebody who looks like us. So if I am, a multiracial woman, and I see a multiracial woman in a leadership position, I'm more likely to ask her for a raise or for a promotion or whatever that thing is. And same with the man. If you see a white man in a leadership position, you're more likely to ask. And I really feel that's the case with funding as well. As you know, less than 1% of funding went to African-American women last year, of all of the funding that was out there. And so it's like, why are we not getting this funding? How are we rewriting these conversations? This is something that I was asked all the time, of questions that made no sense to be asked in a professional setting. Where are your kids? Who watches them while you're gone? If you have to travel for work, what are you going to do with your family? And these are questions that I've never seen asked to any man ever in life. We're talking about my business and scaling this out. Why are you bringing my family into this equation? So I think that this was something that was challenging for me to ask at first, or to deal with. And I just started asking back when people would say, oh, where are your kids at a networking event? I would say, oh, where are yours? And just throwing it, and they would stop, and I would be like, it's weird. It's a weird ask. So not in being combative, but I think something we can do as women, and the most important thing we can do, is we need men as allies. So opening up this discussion in a way that isn't us against them or isn't combative, but of like, through my research, I've noticed this. Are you asking some of these questions, or how is the way you can better ask this question? Kind of arming our male allies with better ways to address that, versus coming at them from a place of, aggression or of combativeness. But I think this is an amazing question. Thank you for asking.
Alicia, often you're a veteran. You have this great service, this great history. Did you use that? We're explaining these kind of obstacles. Were there some obstacles, you being a veteran founder, that you've seen offhand?
So being a veteran wasn't a part of my story until quite a ways in, because so oftentimes, and this is a part of the narrative that we've had to rewrite, and I see Matt Harper's on here, you've been instrumental in this as well. But oftentimes when people think veteran, they would think of, like a Rambo type of veteran, or a homeless veteran, or somebody with PTSD. And even a lot of women who've gone through the military have a lot of traumatic stories oftentimes. So this isn't something that I even included as a part of my story. And it was during a pitch competition at USC where our friend James Bottom stopped me in the middle of a pitch and said, hold on, you're a veteran. Why isn't this in your deck? Why isn't this a part of your story? And he literally stopped the pitch competition and made me talk about my service. And it was through talking about that Rob Vickery from Stage Venture Partners came up and said, we invest in women, we invest in veterans. Like, I need to mentor you and talk to you. So it wasn't a part of my story for the longest time. And then I realized that I have to include that in my narrative so that we can rewrite their narrative, so that when people think veteran, they think of Alicia, who's wired to serve, who's running an ed tech company, who just wants to change the world a little to a lot each day, or, some of these other amazing veterans out there.
That's great. Yeah, I love it. I remember you told me about the James Bottom story about him stopping the pitch. I have to talk to James next week at USC, so I'll mention that. So that's a great story. Flossie, you had some comments offhand, just being a milspouse on that part. You want to add that? That was interesting with you and Mike.
And just from the military spouse perspective, and I know Brianna said the same thing, that, we have an organization that has thousands of military spouses that are raising capital, and it's a barrier. It's the same thing. Who's taking care of, how can you build a company and take care of kids when your spouse is deployed or training, and it's like, nobody asks my spouse who's taking care of his kids when he's gone for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, or a year. They just assume his kids are taken care of by somebody. So why is it any business that who's taking care of my kids? It's not an important factor when you're raising capital or running a business or a successful entrepreneur. Like, it's just, why does it come up because I'm a female versus, the service member? So it's a huge part of what we do, and we get to the same question with our spouses constantly. And we were raising around last summer, and it came up, oh, you represent military spouses. And even in questions that we have with our program, when we were advocating prior to COVID for virtual programming, they said, well, if spouses can't come to in-person programs, can they actually start businesses? I was like, okay, well, you can run a business from a laptop. We just have more demands on our time, but it can be more accessible. Like, there was all these barriers where it's like, just because we don't want to drive an hour and find childcare and do all these things, like, it was like, we can still run businesses and we can still be successful and we can still do all these things. We just have more demands on our time than a traditional person. So if you can make the programming virtual, that would be incredible. And it would open up access and make a little less stress on a military spouse who's already in a super stressful situation. But the immediate response was, well, if you can't attend an in-person training, should you be starting a business? That was the immediate go-to. Well, if you can't find childcare, should you be starting a business? And it was like, wrong line of thinking, completely wrong line of thinking.
It's still the wrong conversation, it's still like, and Flossie's been doing an amazing job. I don't think there's anyone better of rewriting the military spouse narrative and shining a light on military spouses. But it's still a wrong conversation. And just like Tripti was asking about, more of these prevention questions, like, instead of how do we make it so that when people see a military spouse walk in the room, they think military spouses are the most overeducated, underemployed group that are out there? How do people think like, actually, there's 1.5 million tech jobs that are available right now, and military spouses are not sitting, but there are all these military spouses around who are the perfect candidates for coding boot camps. We're going to specialize on these military spouses because we know they're smart, they're driven, they're flexible, they're ready to work. And if we arm these spouses with technology, they can literally run the world. Or how are we arming and rewriting these narratives so that when people see someone like me walk in the room, they think, if you've overcome the biggest tragedy of your life, being a veteran, a single mother, like running a business, that's a cakewalk, instead of some of these other questions. So we're still having the conversation wrong. We're still talking about the wrong things. We're still asking the wrong questions, but I think the more we have discussions like this, the closer we get to the right ones.
That's great, Alicia. I love this. You always say being authentic, Alicia. This is a great, genuine talk. Thanks for everyone coming on. Matt Lawless is on. Thanks, Michael, for coming on. Matt too. I did want to have this kind of veteran narrative part of your talk, but I've been saying more and more, Alicia, like, you are like a powerhouse. So you actually represent so much more. So thanks for coming on. I know we're going to do like maybe part 2. We'll see what that looks like. But any final thoughts before we head to our kind of speed networking?
I just want to thank everyone for having me today, and please feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure you'll share my contact information for anyone who needs it. But again, whatever it is that you're doing, you've got this, and just keep going. We need to just keep going.
I love it. That's great. Stephen, I'll let you wrap it up, and then we'll start speed networking.
Awesome. Yeah, for those of you who don't know or haven't been to a few of our talks before, we'll do a little speed networking session. So we'll just randomly match everyone up. And then if you don't want to be a part of that or have to jump on something else, just feel free to jump off now or as we kind of close things out. But just to echo kind of what everyone's feelings have been over the last few questions. Thank you, Alicia, for coming on and speaking today. It was awesome, being able to listen and learn from you today. Just to echo things from the beginning, feel free to give us a like if you're watching this on YouTube. Leave a comment down below. ask a question, share your thoughts. We want this to be an awesome resource, not only for those who are able to join in person on Zoom, but also those who are able to watch these recorded on YouTube as well. So be a part of the discussion and continue to be part of the Fokcus community. But as always, we will see you in the next Tech School episode.